appreciate that. I guess you and I would kind of have to know other cultures. You've been over in Bangladesh, and I've never been before this year, and seeing places where things similar to this are necessary. Over there, they wash people's hands, not necessarily their feet, but before you eat, someone will wash your hands for you. They'll carry the bowl. You can wash your hands before and after a meal. So over there, it's a very nice parallel. But as you mentioned, there are a lot of parallels to us, for us today, to what Jesus gave for us to do, and it's an imperative. And I wonder sometimes if maybe as we focused on the fact that Jesus was not teaching ceremonial washing, he wasn't, if we've sometimes overlooked the primary teaching that Jesus is teaching here and missed a point that is very important, and that is the willingness to serve other people and serve our brethren. If we're not willing to clean the restroom at church, it seems to me that we've rejected this teaching. If we think we're too good for that, we have rejected Jesus' teaching. And maybe if we're not willing to change a diaper, we have missed the sentiment behind this teaching. And so I really appreciate your thoughts and really focusing on what Jesus was teaching so that we don't miss the point. So thank you.
I appreciate that comment. And it's a well taken point that we all might need to do some self-examination and see where are we serving, how are we serving, how and where should we be serving. And perhaps sometimes, maybe just speaking for myself, we get kind of locked into kind of the things that I do, this is my thing, or maybe we ought to be serving in another way. Maybe there's another need that needs to be filled that perhaps we're overlooking or dismissing. So I appreciate that comment.
Brother Chris? Or
Technical difficulties.
Oh. Okay. Brother David?
I just said no, it said kind of what I was going to say, so it's not fair. I experienced the same thing in India, where that loving kindness and care and humility and it wasn't because I was a visiting preacher from America. They did it for everybody and all. I guess I was telling Noah's sister this. I've experienced this with Mennonites who insisted that we had a couple who were with us in Fortuna. Rod will remember this from years ago, and they insisted on that we needed to be washing feet. And I said, well, maybe we can wash each other's cars. That's what we actually get dirty. So as part of this, maybe you can discuss how we can practically answer people who are just very insistent on this. Do we have any practical advice for that?
I mean, for one thing, I look at the New Testament pattern as far as if certain groups or ones are insisting on a ceremonial practice, doing something that in our case usually is not even needed. It's just we don't need to wash one another's feet because they're not dirty when we come together. That might be one aspect to do. I've looked a little bit into what other groups practice. Not a great detail, but I've seen that some will wash one foot for someone. Some will do it as part of their communion, observance in the middle of it or closely associated with it, something to that effect. Even as a sacrament for people who've recently been baptized, they'll come out and wash their feet. It's a ceremonial practice. And I would show that in the New Testament there's no example of that being done, unlike the many things that we do see. Historically, this goes a little bit to what we talked about this morning, in historic ancient writings and references that are made. There are a few here and there from the late 2nd century, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and so on. Tertullian and maybe a few others reference it as a possible practice being done. But again, that's just later historical information, which in the absence of New Testament pattern example of the church doing it, that historical information carries little weight, really none, other than interest. it comes across more like innovation. This is just a new thing that people are doing. So I don't know if I quite answered your question, but.
Brother Richard Bunner.
Thank you, good job, and you answered everything correctly as you made your presentation. Jesus pointed out that this was something that was necessary, where washing the hands or the head was not necessary. And I sort of like the punctuation, the New King James, better than whatever translation you had there on 1 Timothy 5. Paul seems to indicate this is a good work. That,
Yes.
and so you have to have the opportunity, and if you don't have the opportunity, then you don't do it. It's sort of, he mentions also relieving the afflicted, and you might look around and say, I don't see anyone that's afflicted, and someone says, well, let's get a ball bat and break someone's leg, then we can relieve them. You can't do that. And by the same token, if people don't have dirty feet, or if there's no need to wash someone's feet, you don't do it. But there are, as you pointed out, cultures, parts of the world where that's something that might be necessary. And so I think, yes, we do believe in foot washing if it's necessary.
Right. And as Noah and David brought up, where they've traveled, where I've traveled, it was necessary, especially on our most recent trip. During rainy season, those paths were muddy, and we were wearing sandals most of the time, and our feet would just get caked in dirt. It became a pretty regular practice of washing our feet before we went into the house. Now there, even in those village homes, they often have outside spigots and a well pump or something that you can kind of do it on your own. But even then, we would help each other out, kind of wash off the rest, because that was needed for that occasion. Appreciate your point. Ability and opportunity. It's accepted according to what a man has, not according to what he does not have. Using another context there, but the principle applies. We have to have opportunity, and we have different talents, different abilities that might come into play depending on what the situation is.
Any other questions? Brother here.
Brother Madison.
Okay. Brother Madison.
I believe you make a great point in contrast with what the scriptures was teaching. Jesus was teaching them something because they had gotten beside themselves. As often we sometimes do. So then they wanted to know who's going to be greatest. So for them, it was instructions as to, they needed to first show humility. So he was teaching them humility, just like you just pointed out. I'm not saying that you did anything wrong with the scriptures. But for me, it was, I need to be more humble in my teaching. I need to be more humble in my home. So how do I do that? From commandment. But we base a lot of things off traditions. And I think that's what we get off into, the different nationalities become traditions as to why they do these certain things. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. But then Jesus tells us in Matthew 18 that they had to come like little children. So it's all about, he was teaching them to be humble or showing humility, because Zachariah's sons, they wanted to move God out of his place. They wanted to sit one on one side of Jesus and the other on the other side. He said, that's not for me to give. So they didn't got beside themselves. Now the rest of the apostles are upset at them because of the statement that they made with Jesus. So it's all about showing humility, teaching humility, and what we must do to show ourselves effectively to God. And I appreciate what you
Good
just
point.
said.
Thank you. You can only imagine how ashamed the disciples were as their Lord and Master got up and, as a servant, washed their feet when they had been bickering and arguing about who's the greatest.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Sam, do you have any final?
just thank you.
Okay. So we'll break